So Yusuf, the ideology we keep getting peddled from the BBC, we can't afford the NHS. Yet the NHS comes from a time when the country was broken. It comes from a time when the country was almost bankrupt. 256% of GDP to debt. That's a fraction of what it is now, and yet we're being told, oh no, we can't afford the NHS anymore. You know, we're a wealthy country, fifth, sixth country in the world, depending with or after Brexit, and now we're being told we can't afford it. Germany can, but we can't.
Yeah, I mean, it's this meme that's just pumped out by this corporate apparatus of big three management consultancies like McKinsey, the big four accountancy firms like Deloitte and PwC, the big banks, the private healthcare industry, the insurance industry, this whole kind of cluster of think tanks that's colonised around Westminster, around Parliament. Obviously the mainstream media owned by billionaires and transnational corporations, all of that's pumping out this insidious stuff to just undermine the NHS. And that's one of their favourite memes. And the reality is the opposite. As with so many things, you've just got to flip it, invert it, and you've got the truth, which is we can't afford not to have the NHS. I can say that from experience because I'm not just a doctor. The NHS saved my life as a patient about 2-3 years ago now, because I was given a very serious life-threatening diagnosis and underwent several months of life-saving treatment. And you know, I just dread to think the costs of that, the kind of bankrupting costs really of that. When you talk about affordability and sustainability, if I'd been in a private healthcare insurance system.
That's the human cost, isn't it? Literally people being unable to treat themselves, and you got that in America where people can't afford insulin. I mean, you literally risk people dying because they're inability to be able to afford their healthcare. But you've also got the impact on the country. So the country can't afford not to treat its people, because what you get if the country doesn't treat its people, doesn't provide healthcare, is you provide people who are constantly sick, who aren't working properly, who are inefficient. And that's what you've got now. You've got the constant dialogue from the media to saying, well, look at the rest of the world. They're far more efficient. They're producing much more than we are. Why are they producing more than we are? Is it because we're inefficient, backward, haven't got the technology? Well, no, because it's all to do with austerity. It's to do with limitations on population. They can't get access to education, can't get access to healthcare.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you're talking about it, not just the kind of, as you say, human cost of, at an individual level, and you go, when you're talking about that US system, there was a Harvard study which showed that the majority of personal bankruptcies in the US, I think over 60% were due to healthcare costs. So that's at the individual level, as you say, the micro level. At the macro level of states and countries and public spending, government budgets, austerity is not political and economic necessity. It is merely an ideology. It's a framework that conveniently says that there's a limit on public spending that can be carried out by governments, and the reality is not that. The reality is that from when you're talking about that post-war period up till the 70s, you had a completely different framework, which is a Keynesian framework that you can actually spend. The way to kind of deal with a financial economic crisis is to spend money, to invest in the economy and public services, and to therefore create economic growth, create jobs. And as you say, the NHS was created after the catastrophe of World War II to help rebuild Britain at a time when we were completely bankrupt and broke, and yet we managed to create the welfare state, to create the NHS and healthcare. You need good, universal, comprehensive healthcare to have healthy, productive citizens.
All the time improving productivity, because Tony Benn, I think, is famous for saying that all the time, we had a war on during World War II, we had full employment. Yeah. So why can't we have full employment, looking after the caring for the elderly, making sure our population is well? There's no reason why we can't do that, apart from this ideological reason that we have to have market forces involved, private money has to be there, and it all has to be private structures. It makes no sense.
So, well, it makes sense for them. You see, this is where we often hear this thing that it's mad or crazy. It's not. It's it's completely logical and rational from the point of view of vested corporate financial interest, which is that they make as much money as possible. And what they don't want is, of course, that Keynesian framework of public spending, of government and taxpayers spending money to create good quality, decent public services such as healthcare and education and social care, because that crowds them out. It is less profit for them. And they were kept in check during that period. When you look at the kind of the corporate profits, when you look at the taxation levels, when you look at the inequality levels, it was much more controlled and regulated. It wasn't perfect, but it was much more equal picture than we see today. So things really have to change, and the NHS, one of the things they're very clever at doing is that people don't realise the NHS isn't what it was intended. And so they now say, oh look, the NHS is failing. It's not the NHS that's failing, it's the NHS as a market, catastrophic market privatisation experiment that's failed inside the NHS, and that's very important.
But that narrative can never be mentioned. I mean, that narrative can never, be, the BBC, the Mail, they never say that it's the market forces draining the money from the NHS. And then they can't backtrack. They can't actually say this is a failed experiment, because then it says, well, maybe the rail service is a failed experiment. Maybe British Gas is a failed experiment. Maybe British Airways is a failed experiment. Maybe the sell-off of Ordnance Survey is a failed, enterprise. The prison service is a really good one. The catastrophic failure. The East Coast line.
Taken back for the second time.
For the second time, and then when it was taken first time, it provided £1 billion for the Chancellor, and then handed back for private profit, and then to become more efficient, and then to fail again. I mean, how many times does this need to happen again and again? Now with the prison services, which are horrifically dangerous for those involved. And the prison service really highlights the issue as having, private prisons and, private money involved, because we have the highest rates of prison inmates across all of Europe by some way. And you've got to think, well, why is that? Are we giving money for private companies to run prisons?
Yeah, and you look at the US, where you've got, a really privatised prison system, and as you say, it's profit. It's more profitable, to have as many people as you can in prison if you've got